Sound check, sound check. 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 Scott, can you hear? Sound check, sound check.
Hello and welcome to the 2024 Williston Area Chamber of Commerce Candidate Forum ahead of the North Dakota primary election on June 11th, 2024. Thank you all for joining us, whether in person, through our live stream, or on 660 Keys Radio. I am Anna Nelson, President of the Williston Area Chamber of Commerce and your moderator for this evening. We are honored to offer the public this chance to hear from the candidates they will see on the ballot in June, and give the candidates a chance to inform voters of the issues that are important to them. Today, we'll hear from candidates in several races that affect the Williston and Williams County area. Now, keep in mind, city-wide races such as Park Board and City Commission are decided during the primary election. So you will only see their names on the June ballot, not November. Now, school board members will also be decided in June, but they are on a separate ballot, so there will be 2 polls to visit on June 11th. Along with general questions about the candidates, their races, and their motivations for running, we gathered public questions ahead of this evening, and those are the questions you will hear tonight. Due to time constraints, we may not ask every question submitted. No questions will be taken from the floor this evening. We do ask that everyone please be considerate and respectful of fellow candidates and everyone here this evening. Disrespect from any candidates or audience members will not be tolerated. The format will be as follows. Each candidate will be given 1 minute for opening statements, 2 minutes to answer each question, and 1 minute for closing statements. Chelsea Ridge, our Board and Policy Committee Chair, will time each of these segments. She will hold up a purple card when 30 seconds remain, and a red card when 10 seconds remain. We will hear from the candidates in this order. District 2 House and Senate, Williams County Commission, Williston City Commission, and School Board. Our Park Board candidates may not be able to join us this evening. I know Sean Ronas is out of town, and the incumbent, John Liffrig, is currently in a Park Board meeting and will join if he is able. They are both running unopposed. All candidates were invited this evening, but as I mentioned, not all were able to attend. Those absent were invited to submit a statement to be read by the moderator. Now, I will introduce each candidate using information they submitted prior to this evening, on which they can elaborate during their opening statements. Candidates are introduced alphabetically by last name, with incumbent introduced first, if applicable. Now, for candidates, the mics are pushed to talk. So if you are sitting up here, if you're sitting in the audience, please remember that once you're up here, you have to push the button and hold to talk. That will ensure that everybody on the live stream as well as on the radio can hear you. So a very important note for everyone up here. Now, for those in the audience, you should have received a flyer with several QR codes. Now, one of them is for candidate profiles, the other one is for voting information, and the third one is for our app, which also has some voting information and links back to the state and the county. Now, thank you to all of our candidates for your desire to represent Williston and Williams County in your respective races and for your participation this evening. Without further ado, please welcome the candidates for our first race this evening, North Dakota House and Senate for District 2. All right, we have 3 candidates vying for 1 seat in the Senate, vacated by Senator David Rust, and 6 candidates vying for 2 seats in the House of Representatives. Among them are both incumbents running as Republicans for re-election. We will begin with incumbent Representative Bert Anderson, running on the Republican ticket. He is unable to join us today as he had an immovable appointment out of town, but here is what he shared in his bio. Representative Anderson is a lifelong resident of Divide County. He owns a small business, Bert's Woodworks, and has been married to Crosby native Diane Schwann since 1975. They have 2 adult children and 4 grandchildren, all of whom are North Dakota residents. He has served on the Crosby City Council for 40 years. He's a former St. Luke's Hospital Board member and current Crosby Assembly of God Board member and Secretary-Treasurer. Representative Anderson has served on the North Dakota House of Representatives since 2015. He says he wants to continue working to make North Dakota a great place to live, work, raise a family, and do business. Next, we will welcome the other incumbent, Republican Representative Donald Longmire. Representative Longmire is now retired, but was a small business owner and community and economic developer, as well as a school board member in Stanley. He has been married for more than 50 years and has 2 children and 7 grandchildren. He was first elected to this office in 2016. Representative Longmire, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Thank you very much. I thank you for the opportunity to be here to present myself again. I've had the good fortune of serving in the House of Representatives since 2016. I have served on the Education Committee for 8 of those years, and I have served on the Political Subdivision Committee, of which I was the chairman this last session. We have lots of things in North Dakota that we can do, and we've been very fortunate in North Dakota with the things we've gone through. I was on the school board for 21 years, and one of the things that we went through when I was on the school board was reduction in force of teachers, and so I've always been very close to education. I want to see education, so I'm a strong education supporter. I want to keep it viable both financially and emotionally. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Longmire. We will now welcome the first Republican challenger, Alexa Althoff. Ms. Althoff was born in Germany as both of her parents served in the U.S. Army and now resides in Fortuna. A former broadcast and newsprint journalist, she is now the lead video editor for the American Firearms Association, and she is vice chair for the NDGOP District 2. Welcome, Ms. Althoff.
Thank you, and I appreciate you hosting. So my name is Alexa Althoff. I live in Fortuna, and I'm your Republican-endorsed candidate for House District 2, and I'm really excited to be in Williston today. I actually have an incredibly deep connection to this town because it's done so much for me. Many of you might not know this, but I was a journalist for the Williston Herald quite some time ago. For hours each day, I would actually walk a beat and pick up stories around town, around the area. I would sit down with local business owners, people in the energy industry, as well as visiting farmers and ranchers. But my hands were tied. Journalists are trained to gather information and report, not to act, so I quit. Now I work exclusively for one of the largest pro-Second Amendment rights groups in the nation. I became active in district politics, attended the last 2 GOP state conventions as a delegate, and I'm currently the vice chairman for our district GOP. I hope to answer your questions to the best of my ability, and I would be honored to have your vote on the 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Althoff. Our next challenger is Betty Duvetter, who is running as a Democrat. She was unable to join us this evening, but had this to share in her bio. Betty Duvetter was born and raised on a small farm near Wild Rose. Her education and beginning of her career took her to Grand Forks, where she earned her degree from UND and worked for UND Aviation, as well as Brecky Travel. She returned to northwestern North Dakota when she married a Divide County farmer, with whom she shares 4 children and 8 grandchildren. Now retired, she taught English at Divide County High School for 27 years. She has served on numerous community, religious, agriculture, school, and political boards. She says she is running to represent District 2 in the North Dakota House because she is concerned about the direction our government is heading after the 2016 presidential election. She says she wants to be a champion for underdogs, including women, children, the poor, minorities, legal immigrants, daycare providers, teachers, healthcare workers, veterans, and the LGBTQ community, all while upholding Christian values. She concludes that North Dakota is not a one-size-fits-all society, and we need to govern accordingly. Our next contestant and the other Democrat in this race is Gene Nygaard. Mr. Nygaard is also a Wild Rose High School and UND graduate, as well as a U.S. Army veteran, lawyer, and retired farmer who currently resides in Crosby. He is married and has 2 adult stepsons and has served on numerous community boards and volunteered for community organizations in Wild Rose and Divide County. Welcome, Mr. Nygaard.
Welcome. I grew up in the Wild Rose area and I'm new to politics. I've had an interest in politics for over 50 years now, but this is my first try at running for office. I never imagined myself as a politician, but fell upon me to try and revitalize the role of Democrats who have a long history in District 2. The supermajority of Republicans is a disaster, never good for the health or well-being of the state or of North Dakota or anywhere else. North Dakotans have a long tradition of voting for the person, not the party, with split ballots common. But in today's fractured state, the current political scene, that has become practically impossible. With only half of the seats up for election this year, Democrats can't take over either house of the legislature, but we can try and bring some balance and sanity into their deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nygaard. Now, our final candidate on the docket for the House is Charles Ringwald, who is running as a Republican. He is not able to join us and did not submit a bio or a statement. Now, we only have one Senate candidate who is able to join us this evening, so he will join the others to answer questions about how he would represent District 2 in the North Dakota Senate. The other two candidates in this race are Democrat Rosemary Tanberg, who did not submit a bio or a statement, and Republican Mark Engett, who has asked that the following to be read on his behalf. And just to distinguish, this is a statement rather than a bio, so it is a little bit longer. My name is Mark Engett. I am asking for the privilege and honor of working for you as your District 2 state senator. I regret being unable to be here today with you, but family comes first, and I'm attending the wedding of my nephew in Minnesota. As I retired in 2016, my wife Roxanne and I moved to my hometown of Powers Lake. Roxy is from Kenmare, and we've been married for 39 years. We are blessed with a family of 3 married daughters and 3 granddaughters. I'm not a politician, and I've never dreamed of becoming one. Actually, I believe I'm very much like you, a concerned citizen. Like you, I want our government to provide the best educational opportunities for our children. I want to ensure our government defends the right to life and liberty for all of God's creation. And I want our government to work for us and with us, not against us. We simply ask that the government pursues and protects the freedoms and liberties that our Constitution promises us. As for me, I'm a businessman. I've enjoyed a 35-year career working in the oil industry around the world, and have worked in a variety of different capacities. I've worked as a field hand, managed local businesses, gone to manage country businesses, and ultimately I managed global operations. My experiences taught me the art of leadership, the necessity of integrity, and the beauty of a well-executed plan. It is my belief that government should be run like a business, watching the dollars spent, making choices carefully and wisely, and insisting on positive outcomes. But the most important thing is always about providing value to the people that I am serving. In my work life, I've had plenty of political battles, done under duress and never by choice, but some battles need to be fought. If elected, my promise to you is that I will stand firm when the battle rages. So what's important to me? First off, I'm a committed Christian. Faith is the bedrock of my value system, and the truths I hold dear are anchored by the test of time. In my view, truth isn't relative nor subject to change. It doesn't follow the whims of an ever-changing and fickle society. Truth is eternal. It's matter of fact. What was true yesterday is true today and will be true tomorrow. My integrity and strength of character is grounded by my Christian values. Secondly, I'm a conservative. That means I want to conserve our values, culture, and North Dakota way of life. I believe in fiscal prudence. We only spend what we have, and we spend it carefully and responsibly. I believe in limited government. I don't want the government monitoring everything we do, dictating a never-ending list of do's and don'ts that we are compelled to adhere to. This is not what a free society is. I believe that our freedom is a gift from our Creator, and that government exists to protect that freedom rather than threaten it. Third, I'm a constitutionalist. I believe in the spirit of the Constitution just as it was written. Our goal should be to reduce the size of our government, not look for ways to continually increase it. I believe in the principle of individual rights and that law-abiding citizens should not be subject to the capricious nature of bureaucracy and left-leaning courts. Finally, I believe our forefathers got it right. Fourth, I'm a patriot. I love America and I love North Dakota. I've been around the world and back, and I've found no better country anywhere. When Roxy and I retired, we could have chosen any locale we desired, but we chose North Dakota. We wanted to live in a community consisting of people just like you. Now comes the most important part, and that's all of you. We face myriad of challenges today, and the response requires the efforts and spine of many, not just one. I fully understand that if elected, I will be directly accountable to all of you. You rightfully have expectations of me, and I welcome that. I don't profess to have all the answers, but I know that by asking the right questions, I will find the right answers. When we all get involved and work together, then anything is possible. Let's be a force for the good of the state of North Dakota. I'm asking for your vote and look forward to serving you. Thank you. All right, and here with us today is our third candidate, Robert Harms. Mr. Harms was born and raised in Tioga and went on to obtain his undergraduate degree from NDSU and a law degree from UND. He then moved back to Western North Dakota to practice law in Tioga and Williston, where he resides with his wife of 37 years and where they raised 2 sons. The Harms also have 1 grandson. As a now retired lobbyist and consultant, he has worked in every legislative session from 1993 to 2001, and he says he knows the importance of good policy for the people of North Dakota. Welcome, Mr. Harms.
Thank you, Anna. Thanks for the opportunity to visit with the constituents here in District 2. As Anna said, my name is Robert Harms, and born and raised in Tioga. I'm a lifelong resident of North Dakota. I was here in the 80s, street turned down. I worked in the law practice, did that for 12 years. Then I went to work for Governor's Council for 11 years. As I said in my intro, I've worked every legislative session from 90 to 2021, and I've got the experience in what public
Thank you, Mr. Harms. And yes, just a reminder, push and hold and make sure that you're close but not too close to the mic. All right, thank you, Mr. Harms. We will now move to questions. You have 2 minutes to answer each question. When you see the purple card, you have 30 seconds left. The red card, you have 10 seconds to finish your answer. Question number 1. What are the most important challenges facing our state or our region, and how do you propose to address them? Mr. Nygaard, we will begin with you.
Thank you. One of the challenges we face in a legislature like North Dakota is resisting attacks on our voting rights based on false claims of improper voting. North Dakota has had some of the best voting security records anywhere. When and if some facet of it is broken, we're quite capable of fixing it. For example, I just recently got my absentee ballot. On my ballot, they have, on the sleeve that you put the ballot in, they have voting instructions. Those voting instructions falsely tell me that extra postage is required to mail it. That's something that could discourage people. They'd say to hell with it. I'm not going to mess around with going to the post office for the 2 hours a day my post office is open and finding out how much postage I need to put on it. And it's just flat out false because the ballot with the envelope and the sleeve weighs 0.9 ounces, fits within an inch, more than an inch of the dimensions that are allowed. Yet I get no response from anybody about how they're going to fix it. The thing is that, so just fill it out, find the column that's got Nygaard and Duetter and Tanberg on it, check the boxes, put one forever stamp on it, and send it in. Other challenges, last session we had legislatures wanted to throw librarians in jail. It was too much even for our governor. But one thing we know for sure is that he won't be around next time, in our next session. So who knows what will happen if they bring up the same idea again.
All right, and we are at time, Mr. Nygaard. Thank you very much. Ms. Althoff.
Thank you. So I've got 3 key issues. One is securing more funding for the western parts of the state, which do produce a lot of oil revenue. Number 2, transparency. And number 3, working on rural communities. So that goes as follows. Our area produces a dragon's hoard of revenue for the state, but our roads suffer, our schools suffer, our medical facilities are struggling. And what I've always said is our people who work out in the cold shouldn't be left out in the cold. So we need to work harder for that. Number 2, being a journalist, transparency is a key issue for me. As a candidate, I've declined help and money from PACs, super PACs, and special interest groups. As a journalist, even I had a hard time discerning who is in the pockets and the ears of politicians. So I'm walking the walk, not just talking the talk. District 2 comes first. So from bloated bureaucratic salaries, crony deals, email deletions, we need to investigate, expose, and rectify those problems. Another aspect of transparency is open communication. Elected officials work for the public. My personal cell phone is listed on every one of my campaign materials and my website. So just like when I was a journalist, I want to hear from you, your problems, your concerns, your ideas. That simply cannot be done without open lines of communication, and we all work better together. Last, I vow to fight against the encroachment of corporate farming, for promoting Main Street, whether it's here in Williston's or small towns like Epping, Grenora, Crosby, Wild Rose. So those would be my 3 main issues that I would focus on.
Thank you, Ms. Altoff. Representative Longmire.
Thank you. One of the things we have to do as a legislature is we've got to be fiscally responsible. And part of that is making sure we have a balanced tax program. We need to look at our property tax and see what property tax reforms we need to do to bring things in line. The other thing that's of a concern is the return of investment with all the money that's coming out of Western North Dakota, how we reinvest that back into North Dakota, back into Western North Dakota to take care of our many needs. The other thing is education. Education, you realize that the classroom setting has about 200 years old? What we've done in this last session is, in education is we're setting up to get more training and trade issues into the high schools, and we're getting people trained to be electricians, plumbers, carpenters, and a lot of the other jobs. Those of us here in the audience, there are jobs that are in existence today that didn't exist 10 years ago. You know, when you start talking about the ability for dealing with the internet or cybersecurity, we have to make sure that we're adjusting our education to catch up and stay in the lead on all these things. The other thing is that we need to have a cohesive overall financial package for the state, because you know by law we balance our budget because that is required by law. But we have to be fiscally responsible when we're doing that balancing budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Longmire. Now to our candidate for Senate, Mr. Harms, same question.
Well, I think generally the most important challenge facing our state or our region, I think, is our reliance on oil revenue and the spending that the state's been involved with for the last decade or so. What I mean by that is over half the taxes that the state of North Dakota collects comes from one industry, oil. And there's this fund, a legacy fund, one of the things that I helped create 10 years ago when I've been a political activist pretty much my entire adult life. But one of the things that we're doing is we're ignoring the risks that our state, this region holds in terms of what happens if we have a hiccup in the oil industry. I was here in 1980. I had a law office on Main Street, and I know what it was like in '83 when the oil industry turned down. We're not managing very well for that potential reality. I'll give you an example. The legacy fund, since the legislature was able to use the funding, the earnings, it has earned $1.9 billion, but the legislature has spent $1.8 billion of the earnings. And so that's an overriding concern that I have with regard to our economy and the fiscal policies that our state is practicing. More practically, I think one of the other key issues I think that we need to focus on is both workforce and affordable housing. We hear that all the time, but nobody's done anything really about it in terms of workforce. For example, I think one of the things that we should do, 800 new employees have come to state government in the last 20 years. 800 new employees. We have about 16,000 FTEs right now. I think we should have a program that encourages those public employees to come into the private sector. That would be an example. And as far as affordable housing, I think what we ought to do is encourage the private sector to respond to that. I'm not opposed to having some incentives to allow that to take place, but I think affordable housing is another thing that all contributes to our economic vitality in this region.
Thank you, Mr. Harms. Question number 2. Economic diversification is often discussed as crucial for communities like those in District 2. What specific measures do you believe should be taken to promote diversification and reduce reliance on any single industry at the local and state levels? Ms. Althoff, we'll begin with you.
Primarily, I believe we need to strengthen our small towns and our rural towns. And frankly, people in other areas consider Williston a small town, but it's not as small as it used to be. And so I'm kind of a big history buff. And up in the northwest corner, let's take Fortuna, for example, where I live, it had 214 people in 1940 and just under 200 since 1920. 1970, when the air base was active, we were up to 216 people. And today, we're down to about 30 as of the last census. So why is that? Small towns and regular businesses are suffering under inflation. Family farms are struggling, and more fold every year. And also newspapers too, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart. In fact, this is kind of interesting for anybody else who likes history. There used to be 3 official newspapers per county. 3, and that was until the NPL was in charge and dropped that number to just 1, and that was around 1918. I think about in a year, 200 newspapers folded across North Dakota. That's 200 small businesses, and we're talking this was a long time ago, but what happens is that they left small towns without local news, advertising, and a community hub. And imagine having only 1 radio station for an entire county. So if we can open things back up like that again, but it's hundreds of small cuts like this, which has left rural North Dakota struggling and undiversified. We need to deregulate, stimulate economics in small and medium-sized towns, and this will build better families, communities in North Dakota as a whole. So I believe we need to focus on deregulation and allowing those cities to grow like they used to be.
Thank you, Ms. Althoff. Representative Longmire.
Thank you. Economic development in rural communities is very close to me. I spent 16 years as an economic developer serving 7 counties in northwest North Dakota. And the one thing that we have to learn is that it's not the way we used to do it. We have to change. Just because something worked 30 years ago doesn't mean it will work today. And we have to look to things that are out there. We should be taking advantage of the internet. Look at all the number of entrepreneurs who have started businesses and actually doing their sales and everything over the internet. We have residents in North Dakota that are selling worldwide. We have an example here in Williston of a company that's taken advantage of a natural resource other than oil, and it's used as a fertilizer, and it's used throughout the world. And that's based out of Williston, North Dakota. We can do those things. You know, if you look at the different communities around, we have lots of people that we need to help to encourage and provide assistance for developing entrepreneurship so that they can take some of their ideas and their projects and go worldwide with them. We need to get beyond the point of, well, we can't do that here in North Dakota. We can't, you know, and we need to adjust. We need to have new business models for people to follow so that they have the opportunities, the same opportunities if they live in New York or Chicago. There used to be a program called Lone Eagle, where a person could be operating out of Ross, North Dakota, and be having a worldwide business. So I think we just need to change our business models and give those the assistance they need.
Thank you, Representative Longmire. Mr. Nygaard.
Okay, like the others have said, the boom and bust cycles in the oil field and agriculture are familiar to all of us. But we need sensible diversification. We need, ask the people of Williston, is cryptocurrency mining the cure-all for us? That going to be the savior of our communities, or is it just noisy and a big waste of electrical power? The we need we need diversification for several reasons, not just because you know, I'm from up by Noonan where they used to have coal mines. Well, the coal mines shut down because they ran out of coal. That's one problem with relying too heavily on exploitation. The other problem is, and I'm sorry about my fingers there. Climate change is real. Climate change is here. It'll get worse. Burying your head in the sand and pretending that it isn't true won't change anything. Mother Nature doesn't care what you let yourself know. And that's a big thing in the natural resources area. We need to diversify into, you know, wind, which Divide County doesn't like, and various other things in our we need less reliance on oil and agriculture, but I'm not sure what we need. We need to look, we need to consider things like Mr. Langmuir said. We need to try new things.
And that
That's-
is time. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nygaard. All right, and now for our Senate candidate, Mr. Harms, same question.
Well, I'm with Mr. Nygaard. I think we need sensible diversification. We've been diversifying North Dakota's economy for my entire adult life. I remember in the 80s, after the oil industry crashed, and I was still here, we had a program called Vision 2020, and that began the diversification of North Dakota's economy 30 years ago. Doug Burgum and a guy from Tioga, Dennis Johnson, co-chaired that thing. So I think we've been doing that. We've been diversifying our economy statewide, one. And I think how do we continue to do that? Get the fundamentals correct. Reasonable taxes, low cost of services, sound infrastructure so you can move products when and where you need to do so. But I'm also cautious about what kind of diversification we should be promoting. I don't believe we should do anything anywhere in northwestern North Dakota. I think it has to be reasonable. I think we have to make sure that the people who invest here put their money in, along with them asking for us to put our money in. I think those are some things that we ought to do. We should continue to work on the education front, create internships so we can have new kids coming out of high schools with new ideas that develop the kinds of new manufacturing and inventions that are evident right here in Williston. So those are some of the things I think that we need to do is, yes, diversify our economy, but it has to be sensible, not anything, anywhere, and our money goes in first with the hope that it might produce some diversification in our economy for this region. So that's kind of my view about diversifying our economy.
Thank you, Mr. Harms. And we'll actually keep it right here with you, our Senate candidate, for this final question. If you were to be elected, which committees would you most like to serve on or feel that your background and expertise would best fit?
Well, I would, my two preferred committees would be appropriations. That's where the money gets allocated and spent. And, you know, with the experience that I have in the legislature, usually what happens is freshman legislators don't go to appropriations. They have to work a couple sessions before they get to appropriations. But I've been around that process for most of 30 years. And so I know how budgets are built. I know what the governor's budget guidelines, what they mean to the agencies. I know what the agencies are doing in terms of building their budgets right now. So that would be one of my first priorities. If not appropriations, then the other I think that I would prefer to work on would be the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. That all the while that I spent in state government, that's what I worked on, was oil and gas tax policy, natural resources, water development, any of those things that are dealt with by those committees. So those would be my two top priorities.
Thank you, Mr. Harms. Now to our House candidates, beginning with Representative Longmire.
Thank you. The committees I prefer to work on, first one is education. I'm a strong person that believes in education and the changes that we need to do to education to bring around new ideas and new ways to do things. I have been serving on that committee. My 21 years on the school board in Stanley was very beneficial for me. I have a deep feeling for education and for educators. You know, some of the changes that have come through have not all been good, and we need to make sure that we have a realistic expectation of our education system. But our education system we need to continue to work on that. The second committee I would like and I chaired this last session is called Political Subdivisions. That's one that deals with a lot of laws and bills that deal with local control, where sometimes the state wants to take over and do those decisions in Bismarck that should be done out here in our local communities. We don't want to hobble the county commissioners or the school boards or the township boards or any of the local boards. The best decisions made for our state of North Dakota are made on the local level. You know, we have, whether our librarians and library boards making a decision what books to put in their library, or whether it's where to get those gravel roads taken care of first, the triage that needs to be done, and a follow-up on all that, and providing the expertise at the different levels that people need to do their work. But so education and political subdivisions are my two selections.
Thank you, Representative Longmire. Ms. Altoff.
Well, of course, if I had my druthers for standing committees, it'd be Appropriations, Ag, and Energy and Natural Resources. But there are also a couple interim committees which do matter. One of them I would choose would be Government Finance Committee, and another one, which may not get a lot of attention, is actually the Information Technology Committee. And one of their assignments, actually, that they just have out is a study of the emergence of artificial intelligence and the potential impacts on the state's institutions, agencies, businesses, citizens, and youth. And it goes on to also talk about cybersecurity implications, state services, and a lot of that process. But they talk about public safety concerns when in the world of AI. And I think we need legislators who understand and have real-world experience in new and emerging technologies. I actually use AI for a lot of my work, and I remember the early iterations where you would see, you know, weird hands and missing fingers, but now it has come so far so quickly that it can almost exactly mimic human voice, even with inflections, and not to mention the image generation technology. So I think we need somebody who is of a new generation to understand this, who works with it, and then can also come up with good legislative fixes.
Thank you, Ms. Altoff. Mr. Nygaard.
Like Mr. Harms said, as freshman legislator, I probably won't have my best choice, but my choices would be judiciary, appropriations split into divisions. Would the education and environment one would interest me, and I'd also be interested in energy and natural resources, political subdivisions, or government and veterans affairs. It's something that basically, you know, you have to get down there and work around with the others. But those are the areas where I would be most interested in serving in the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nygaard. You will now each have 1 minute for your closing statements. We'll begin with Representative Longmire.
Thank you very much. I would like to just ask for all your support as we go into this this cycle and make sure everybody gets out to vote. You know, that's a privilege that in a lot of countries they don't have. But we need to get everybody out to vote. I would prefer that you vote for me, but the important thing is that you get out and vote. So please vote on June 11th. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Longmire. Ms. Altoff, you have 1 minute.
Thank you, and thank you for hosting this. So I see a future where all of Western North Dakota works together to be a stronger region legislatively so larger population centers don't get preferential treatment, where we can do live streams to inform the people of our districts and to allow them to ask questions in real time. Because this next session will have hugely contentious issues. We will be talking about property tax reform, AI issues, and more things will pop up along the way. But what I'd like to do is take our core conservative values and bring them into the modern era. So I would appreciate your vote on June 11th. You can visit my website, alexaford2.com, or check me out on Facebook. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Altoff. Mr. Nygaard, you have 1 minute.
We need legislatures who serve North Dakota and not themselves. There's more important things to do than get reelected. Fiscal responsibility includes things like doing your job, not waiting until the last day of the legislature and illegally throwing everything into one bill so that the courts tell you got to come back and spend another week doing your job that you should have done the first time. Property taxes, you know, we had property tax reform. It lasted until the election was over. What we need to realize is that a lot of the property tax, or eliminating the property tax, is going to put an even bigger burden on the oil sector than what we have so far. It's, you know, if we're going to pay for everything out of the oil sector instead of property taxes, that's not going to work either. We need sensibility, and my time is up.
Thank you, Mr. Nygaard. Now for our Senate candidate, Mr. Harms.
Thank you, and thank you again for hosting this. I would like the constituents, the voters of District 2, to think about hiring a combine mechanic. You want the best combine mechanic that you can find. And my experience, I've stayed in North Dakota for the last 44 years. I practiced law here. I know what the law does with regard to your families, your businesses. I've worked in every legislative session. I know the effect of public policy. My focus on policy, if I'm elected, will be on property taxes, property tax relief, reducing the sales tax, and giving people back some of their money, more of their money. Not things that most North Dakotans aren't particularly concerned about every day they go to work. I've got the experience, the policy understanding, the knowledge, and the skills, the relationships of most effectively serving District 2 in the North Dakota legislature, and ask for their vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harms. Thank you to all of you, and you may now take your seats in the audience. Thank you. Our next race to come up will be Williams County Commission. So as we are bringing our candidates up here, just so everyone knows the basis of the race here. So both of these candidates are running unopposed for 2 open seats, and they're running for 2 separate districts within Williams County. So welcome, gentlemen, this evening. Thank you so much for being here. All right, just a reminder that you will push and hold the button on your mic whenever you are speaking. All right, if you are ready, we will begin with our opening statements for which you have 1 minute each. And we will begin with the incumbent, Steve Kemp. As I mentioned, he is running unopposed for re-election to his Williams County Commission seat in District 2. Mr. Kemp is a lifelong Williston resident and business owner, having worked in the Williams County IT department, served 8 years on the Vector Control Board and 7.5 years on the commission. His work with the county now spans more than 2 decades. He says he is running because he has more to give, and as the holder of the county's economic development portfolio, hopes to see the ongoing industrial development projects come to fruition. Welcome, Commissioner Kemp.
Thank you. Glad to be here and excited for the future of Williams County. We've seen tremendous population growth over the last years, and I'm excited to see that continue on into the future. We have tremendous opportunities in adding value to our commodities in Williams County, and that being oil, natural gas, and ag. And I think there's a missing component there. Instead of being whipsawed by the price of those commodities, adding value to those commodities right here in Williams County will help us keep our economy rolling strong when oil prices and egg prices fall. And so if we can add the value to those products right here, right now, in this state without shipping off our raw goods for somebody else to add value to them somewhere else, we're going to be far better off. And we're on the path to doing that and making tremendous progress from our economic development perspective.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. Now we will turn to Chris Wallstead, who is running unopposed for the Williams County Commission in District 4. Mr. Wallstead is a Williston native, obtained degrees from the Hawkeye Institute of Technology and Trinity Bible College and Graduate School, where his son and daughter-in-law both now work. He has been married for 36 years, and he and his wife continue to call Williston home, where he is currently a school board member and chaplain PRN for CHI. Welcome, Mr. Wallstead.
Yes, good evening, and thank you, Ms. Nelson, for hosting us and moderating this evening. It is truly a privilege to be considered for this seat. My wife and I love the community of Williston. I've been away a couple of times, but continue to come back. And I believe that Williams County is a gold mine and a treasure, and I can't understand why anybody wouldn't want to live in this region. And I really do want to do all that I can to promote that growth and development and work alongside this incredible team that is seated at these chairs in this boardroom. Any accomplishments or achievements that would be, I guess in my tenure, would only be made possible by standing on the shoulders of incredible people that have preceded me. My great-grandparents homesteaded this region back in the very early 1900s in Winter and Athens Township. And I love Williams County, I love Williston, and I want to do everything I can to promote business and industry, tourism, and attract families to our region.
Thank you, Mr. Wallstead. We will move now to our questions. As a reminder, you have 2 minutes to answer each question. The purple card means you have 30 seconds left. The red card means you have 10 seconds to finish your answer. All right, question number 1. As one of 5 commissioners, what impact do you hope to have on the Board of Commissioners? We'll begin with you, Mr. Wallstead.
I think I just want to work in tandem or in unison or in harmony with the other commissioners that are here to continue to promote what has already been achieved and accomplished and set forth and planned for Williams County. I'll be the freshman on the board and the first one to admit there's a big learning curve for me on this place. But I think the greatest impact I can make here would just to bring a common sense and wise approach to big decisions that need to be made to promote our community. And I think that's all I would have to say on that.
Thank you, Mr. Wallstead. Commissioner Kemp.
Yes, it's important to note that we are just one of 5, and those 5 people represent the areas that they represent in equal population basis, so that we accurately and effectively represent roughly 8,000 people per district. It's a challenge, but we're blessed at Williams County having an incredibly professional staff that help us along every step of the way. And we can lean on that staff, and that would be my advice for Mr. Wallstead. to lean on the staff, the professional staff that we've hired and maintained throughout the county. They've done a tremendous job, and they help guide us along this process. And it's been very rewarding to be a commissioner and have the staff that we do at Williams County to help support what we do.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. And we will keep it here with you for this next question. Williams County has seen both its population and economy increase in recent years. How do you think the Commission could support growth with respect to housing, child care capacity, and other infrastructure, as well as overall quality of life?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Do we have an hour?
2 minutes only.
Could you? Oh, I've got it right here. Never mind. We'll start with housing. We'll just work our way through it. Housing is one of our biggest challenges that we've got in front of us right now. A new construction house starting out at likely a minimum of around $500,000 is a real challenge for people to get into. And couple that with a very limited supply of inventory of existing housing, like you might think of a starter house. And nowadays a starter house is at minimum $300,000, and you've got your hands full with a $300,000 house in Williams County right now. So we have tremendous challenges from a cost impact, and we need to do everything we can to drive down those costs in whatever ways that we have power to do so. Now, we don't influence the market, but we can do things to help streamline and reduce costs wherever costs are involved that we impact, such as building permits and other things. But the housing is a true issue. I was invited to be on the Governor's Housing Initiative Committee, and so I am going to bring any ideas that the residents of Williams County have to that committee, and we're going to come up with some brainstorming opportunities there. Moving on to child care capacity, I think we've made some tremendous strides through our grant program through Williams County. We've put money where our mouth is, and understanding that if we can free people up to get to work and help the workforce issue ultimately by giving them childcare, that is a double whammy effect for us from an economic perspective. So moving on to infrastructure. Infrastructure is another big challenge. We're facing that right now in the Marley Crossing area, where we're looking to get a lot of industrial development. Our biggest hurdle at the moment is water. And we have water in most areas in the county, rural water, but we do have some challenges in the Northeast that are hopefully being met. But we're still working to get water, rural water, down to southwest Williams County. So,
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. Mr. Wallstad.
I think Commissioner Kemp took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say everything that he said, but there's no doubt. I am currently serving as a business advisor for Job Service North Dakota, so I'm very familiar with our workforce needs in Williams County. I deal with it consistently every day, and everything seems to be connected. I think that our city and our county has done phenomenal in meeting the child care needs. We've kind of caught up in the child care need area in Williston, or at least we're getting there. When it comes to the housing, I sat here in a roundtable as we discussed the housing needs in Williston and Williams County. I don't know if there's any easy answer, and I'm not educated enough with the limited knowledge that I have to give an honest, intelligent answer on how to solve the housing crisis. But the housing crisis and the workforce crisis are really, that's exactly where we are in Williston. If we can incentivize through financial means to bring down the cost of housing, that would be amazing. But we are in a unique building environment in northwestern North Dakota, as you well know. I just want to do what I can to bring people to our region and get them here. But let's address the housing crisis. Let's address the work shortage. And I think, again, that we are a gem in northwestern North Dakota. I can't see why anybody would not want to move to Williams County, bring their family here, go visit the website. We're in Williams County, and see some of the testimonials by individuals like Anna Nelson herself, who relocated here and found a home. So we want to make this a destination and a place to live.
Thank you, Mr. Wallstead. All right, and back to you for this next question. As a commissioner, there is a responsibility to make planning and zoning decisions that effectively balance the needs of existing industries, such as agriculture and energy, as well as new industries and the landowners of Williams County. What is your philosophy as it relates to changes in land use throughout the county?
I think our farmers are probably the best stewards of land. They use it to they use it for their means and for their income and for their livelihood. So I believe farmers really understand the land and they know how to use the land, and I have a great deal of respect for them. When business and industry begin to encroach upon that, obviously a dialogue and discussion needs to take place. But ultimately, I like to bring people to the table and say, what is the wisest decision that helps everybody globally? We have to think globally. We can't think individually. We can't think emotionally. We have to think rationally. And when we come to the table with decisions on items like land use, planning and zoning, we have to think about the greater picture and what's best for all people, not just one person.
Thank you, Mr. Wallstead. Commissioner Kemp.
Planning and zoning is the biggest challenge being a county commissioner. It is where in my very first meeting ever as a county commissioner, I had friends in the audience begging me not to vote yes on a particular issue in planning and zoning. I had to vote yes because we would have foregone $5 million in expense from taxpayers' dollars in the east bypass. So planning and zoning is a very, very challenging subject, and there's always a winner and a loser, and it's the hardest part of this job, honestly. And what we have to recognize from a land use perspective is there are landowners that might be willing to sell their land. And if it happens to be adjacent to an existing industrial facility, who are we to tell that landowner they can't sell that land for the purpose of being used for industrial, so long as it met the needs of that area or met the needs or the restrictions of an industrial development, for example. So it is a challenge, and it's the biggest challenge that we face. And ultimately, it's been my position to allow the landowner to have the control of what gets done on that land, for so long as it follows the rules and the laws and regulations.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. All right, and we will start here again with Commissioner Kemp for our fourth and final question. What do you consider to be the top 3 priorities for Williams County at this time? Please answer in the form of just a simple list.
Sure. No elaboration?
Nope.
I would suggest that housing, quality of life, and value-added ag and energy or economic development would be the 3 biggest items.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. And the same question to you, Mr. Wallstead.
Yes, I would agree that housing is number one, and quality of life, and then I would just go along with that, with having an adequate workforce to meet what we would add to bring quality of life to Williston and Williams County.
All right, thank you both so much. We'll move to our closing statements, beginning with you, Commissioner Kemp.
I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. I have felt like I've got additional work to do. I thank you to my wife for who's in the audience, Carla Kemp, who's given me the opportunity to do this, because it's not easy, and it can be a challenge on a family to be in these positions. But I look forward to the next 4 years and seeing to fruition a lot of these projects that we've started working on. I'd love to see them get finished. I'd love to see the citizens of Williams County benefit from the work that we're doing, and then I'm done. This is the last term for me for sure. So, and that's it for me.
Thank you, Commissioner Kemp. And Mr. Wallstead.
I too would like to recognize my wife, Robin, who has seen me through so many things, and we do bring home things sometimes that is challenging to the entire family. I want to say I love Williston. I love Williams County. My heart has always been drawn back to this region, and I absolutely passionately love living in this area. I want to do the best that I can to be a public servant and serve our community and our region, and to really see growth and development come to Williams County. We are truly a gold mine in this region, and it's an honor to serve in this position. And again, I am proud of the other commissioners that have served and those who have served preceding me. I would stand on the shoulders of giants. They have done an amazing job, I believe, at promoting and taking care of Williams County.
Thank you, Mr. Wallstad. All right. Thank you both very much. You may now take your seats. And we will bring up, yes, please. Now we will bring up our city commission candidates. And as we are making this change here, I just wanted to reiterate how grateful we are that our unopposed candidates are here this evening that we just heard from Williams County. They are truly here to serve, and we appreciate them for being here this evening and sharing who they are. And also just a reminder to everyone online and in the audience, our primary day is June 11th. If you need any additional information, you can find that on the county's website, and that will show you polling locations and measures and all of those important details. And again, if you want to see full profiles of all of our candidates, you can find that at wilsonchamber.com. All right, looks like we are settled up here. So, welcome to our Wilson City Commission candidates. 4 candidates are vying for 2 seats. One is an incumbent running for re-election to his seat, and the other seat will be vacated by Danette Pizik. So we will begin with incumbent Brad Beckedahl. Commissioner Beckedahl was born and raised in Williston, has spent 40 years practicing dentistry, and is also a North Dakota Senator for District 1 and current Senate Appropriations Chair. He's an Army veteran with 26 years of service in the Reserves and National Guard. He has served on the national, state, and local levels from volunteer to appointed to elected positions and is seeking to continue his service to Williston on this commission. Welcome, Commissioner Beckedahl. You have 1 minute.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you for putting this together for us through the chamber as well. I want to thank everybody that's here, either in person or online, for attending the event tonight and becoming more informed. Anna spoke briefly about my family history. My family on my father and my mother's side has been in the Williston region now for over 100 years, having been early homesteaders. My father in the Wild Rose area, the little town of Hamlet, and my mother just west of Williston along the Montana-North Dakota border. I've been pleased to be involved in my adult life with benefiting the community. I've also been blessed to have been asked by Dr. Hagee, my dentist as a child, to come back here and take over his dental practice, and been doing that for the last 40 years. I've enjoyed being engaged and bringing all the experience I can with me to this position. I'm honored to have the opportunity to serve the residents as a city commissioner for the last 28 years and would appreciate your vote and continued support.
Thank you, Commissioner Beckedahl. Next, we will welcome Alex Johnson, a Williston native and current business owner and community leader. He and his husband continue to put down roots here in Williston, where he owns Midwest Metaphysics and is general manager of River's Edge and 4 Mile. And he's a fierce advocate for human rights, diversity, and acceptance. He says he is running because he wants to foster a more inclusive and transparent governance model. He believes in employing accountability, service, and the power of community to set the foundation for a stronger, unified tomorrow. Welcome, Alex.
Thank you, everybody. So first and foremost, I'm a product of Williston. I was born here. I grew up here. My family is from the area. And I found a home here. I found family, friends. I found my love. I found my home. And at the end of the day, I want to give back to the community that raised me. This is my home. Ultimately, this is where we stand. My belief is in Williston. It's in the spirit of that resilience that comes from our community. And oftentimes, my focus always goes back to community because that is where we find this engagement. We find the need to give back, to live of service, and to promote a better world for everybody and for the future generations. We have to focus on the future. And so, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. We will now welcome Victoria Tori Simoneski. Originally from Beulah, North Dakota, Tori obtained degrees from UND and Minot State before ultimately settling down here in Williston with her husband and 2 children. She is a regulatory supervisor for Grayson Mill Energy and is a Williston Planning and Zoning Commissioner. She says she is running because she is passionate about Williston and its future and is an active problem solver. Welcome, Ms. Simoneski.
Thank you so much. So, when I moved to Williston, I had the choice of where I wanted to move with my husband's job transfer. I could have moved to Minot, Tioga, or Williston, and I chose Williston. And that was because of the unique culture and the opportunities that the city had to offer. And in the last 6 years, I have put down my roots and made Williston my home. I'm raising 2 children here. One is a first grader, so I have personal stake in the school system here and the education system here. Also the healthcare and the economic development. I just want to see the city grow in the right direction, responsibly, and invest in the future for my children and my family and the community that I want to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simoneski. We'll now turn to Mason White. Mr. White is a 4th-generation Williston native who has been active in sports, 4-H, and musical groups and organizations. He is a volunteer for the Williston Honor Guard and looks forward to representing his hometown. Welcome, Mr. White.
Thank you. Thank you so much for putting this on. Like I've stated, I was born and raised here. I have almost 120 years with my family being here. And I just look to have a further understanding of how our city is run and learn and represent that and do the best of my abilities to share that knowledge with the constituents I want to serve. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. We will now move to questions. As a reminder, you have 2 minutes for each question. The purple card means you have 30 seconds left. The red card means you have 10 seconds to finish your answer. Question number 1. In your opinion, what are the fundamental professional responsibilities of the individual holding the elected position of Williston City Commissioner, and what will your approach be? We'll begin with Ms. Simoneski.
Thank you. I think first and foremost, Williston City Commissioners, they need to listen to the public and respond to any issue that's raised. And then additionally, of course, everyone has their specific portfolio, so whether it's public works, that's specific to that commissioner to champion for that group of the city. I also think that being a commissioner takes more than just being willing to serve and manage our portfolio and dig into hard issues, right? You need to make sure you're listening and collaborating with different groups, reaching out, managing difficult projects. My role as a regulatory supervisor, I've worked with local, state, and federal governments managing well pads and getting permits in difficult situations. And I think commissioners also have to do some of the same roles, communicating with constituents why they're working in a certain direction and making sure the community knows that this is the best direction and the best decision to make.
Thank you, Ms. Simoneski. Mr. White.
Some responsibilities. There's definitely communication for sure. I'd also have to say I'd add dedication, devotion, just overall appreciation to the city and willing to listen to everyone, having an open dialect, really having an open communication, having a willful to understand and be able to share that knowledge with the people of the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Mr. Johnson.
The professional responsibilities that are needed for the city commissioner is to have some experience in management. This is like a business, so you have to run it like a business. And in order to do so, you have to know what is important. So first of all, we have people. People are number one. Place, we're in Williston. Then we have to start thinking about the profit. So we have to have a plan in action for the budget. The budget is that is crucial to being a commissioner, is knowing that budget. So creating some sort of 5-year plan to go along with the different departments. And then next is to be prepared. We have to be prepared for anything and knowing how the oil is, because the oil can change any day. And so knowing those fluctuations, we can plan better to suit the needs of the citizens of Williston. So the responsibilities lie in that management and knowing how to effectively run a business, but also effectively lead. And of course, communication is key, because in order to work with the public, you have to communicate with them. So you have to be very transparent. You have to tell them exactly what is going on in a way that will create a better dialogue between the community and the different departments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. And Commissioner Beckedall.
Well, thank you. As most people that know me well will perceive tonight and perceive most of my life, I'm not a great speaker at events like this. I kind of abhor crowds, but I love doing work. And that's what I think is a professional responsibility for the commission. The other one is that listening has always been more important to me than speaking. So hopefully I've done a good job of that over the last 28 years. But the responsibilities of the commission, I would tell you professionally, are to provide for community safety, prepare and implement balanced budgets for operations, promote Williston for growth and development, cooperate with other taxing entities to provide services efficiently, pursue other funding sources to reduce the burden of property tax to residents, be available to listen to resident concerns and assist them in resolution of the issues, work with the state to return revenue to the city and region, respond to community needs with quality of life improvements, attend local events as community representatives, and work with other cities to promote policies that benefit the residents of the area. Those, I think, are the priorities that I have had and will continue to have on the commission.
Thank you, Commissioner Beckedall. Now, based on several questions received from the public, there seems to be a desire for additional retail establishments, with some citing concerns that they are spending dollars in and generating tax revenue for other communities. What would your response to this be? And if elected, how would you, as a commissioner, encourage development in Williston to fill these gaps? We'll begin with you, Mr. White.
We would definitely have to reach out to businesses coming in to acquire these additional retail establishments. And with doing that, we'd have to just have an open dialogue of wanting to be living here. And I think that comes first and foremost with wanting to have a good community to come live and do business in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Commissioner Beckedall.
Well, relative to retail and commercial growth, Williston has been fortunate to have substantial population growth in the last 10 years that has made recruitment of businesses possible. I remember a day when the door for businesses went elsewhere and not coming here. We have an environment that is very beneficial to businesses coming in. We have a significantly strong downtown business district, as well as new business districts throughout the growth areas of the city, which is now 3 times larger than we were before the Bakken development. With the vacation of the old airport, the commission has been planning the area for retail, commercial, housing, medical, and schools since before the airport moved. We've seen success there with 1 retail and 1 restaurant currently in place, and other food service entities planning locations there soon. We've also sold land in the square to Sanford for a new medical clinic and Bethel Home for its new center. There are several housing proposals currently being looked at after the city requested proposals to come into the square. We continue to also promote other land available in the city with private developers and working with the private sector to develop more retail and commercial businesses the public wants to see. I would tell you that the city has been listening and the city has been engaged in working. We have great professional staff at the city to take on these areas for future growth, including in our economic development, our engineering, and other areas within the city. So I think we're well positioned. I think the staff has been working hard, and I think the city residents will continue to see benefits from that.
Thank you, Commissioner Beckedall. Mr. Johnson.
Williston is the land of opportunity for a reason. We have so much potential in this area, and there are so many different resources that can help businesses come in and thrive. One thing that we notice is that people are very big on supporting local. And so as these businesses grow, we're seeing more tax revenue coming in because people are spending more locally. They aren't having to go to per se Minot or Bismarck or order online. People are finding that the more businesses that are developed here, we're seeing more profit here. We're seeing that money coming back into our community. So to fill those gaps, the city has so many different structures in place with incentives. And with that, we can bring in more business and raise our economic base. We don't need to have it just to where our focus is oil. We have so much opportunity here in other businesses and other sectors that we can open up the door to other industries coming in and thriving in our location, because I mean, Williston is a land of opportunity. We should be inviting that in.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Simoneski.
I mean, I'll really echo Brad and Alex's comments. We do have great entrepreneurs in this area. I think we have a lot of people that come into Williston and they want to grow their business or they want to bring in new business. And these entrepreneurs are very creative and innovative on how they want to open new establishments, and certainly have partnered with the city with various grants and opportunities that the city offers to continue building Williston. And I just see a very bright future for Williston to continue to attract entrepreneurs and even big retail establishments, whether it's going to be in Williston Square or some other areas in the city. Sky's the limit on continuing to attract investments and economic development in this town.
Thank you, Ms. Simoneski. Our next question. What do you believe is the City Commission's role in creating an economic climate that is conducive to population and economic growth, and how would you balance that with the small town feel that some current residents enjoy? We'll begin with you, Commissioner Beckedall.
Well, we're very fortunate in Williston. We have many strengths. Our major strengths are our people, our energy and ag sectors, our water and power resources, great roads, communications, and education environment. The economy of the Williston area is very strong, and we've traditionally been in the top 3 cities for sales tax receipts in the state. For many of the last 10 years, we were number 1, and the growth we are currently seeing puts us in a strong position to fight for that again over the Fargo area. While recognizing the strengths we have, the Commission has not sat back and enjoyed that success. They've been actively involved in recruiting new businesses, assisting local business growth through the STAR Fund, and working with the state and private entities to diversify and grow the economy. Our local Small Business Development Center is the busiest and most productive in the entire state. The recruitment of oil and ag businesses that bring value to our raw communities, as mentioned earlier, is a new horizon and will lead to significant growth in employment and community development. Working with our neighbor communities, Williams County, state of North Dakota, we will continue to grow to the benefit of all of Northwest North Dakota. I see success on every horizon for the city of Williston in its growth of economic climate.
Thank you, Commissioner Beckedall. Mr. Johnson.
I think we're going to see Williston continue to grow, and so we have to adapt to that. And through the city commission, part of our responsibility is to always be around with the citizens and understand what their needs are. With the small town feel that we will always want to have, we have to acknowledge the fact that change is inevitable. And in this area, we're growing to a point where it is great for the economy, and it's great for the future generations, because at the end of the day, like, that's what is important, is what is going to benefit the future generations of Williston the most, and that is by bringing in more economy. It's about building that economy and diversifying that economy and bringing in more education, more thriving businesses, and allowing Williston to grow at a rate that is productive to the community. And the city commission, they play a crucial role in that because they're doing so much work to bring those businesses here. And as as we can see, they're going to continue to inspire those future generations to want to allow Williston to adapt to the needs of the people.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Simoneski.
So I just want to touch on culture first, because part of my statement earlier was I moved to Williston because of the culture. I don't think the culture of Williston's necessarily going to change if we try to all maintain that small town feel, right? That nice North Dakota nice feel. We're going to be nice to our neighbors, and we're going to recognize people on the street. But we are a larger town, right? We have 31,000 people living in Williston, and with that comes the economic growth. And economic growth it's a complex issue because I really believe it's symbiotic between, having good schools, and that brings in good teachers, brings in people that want to staff the healthcare system. So we bring in good teachers, and then you also need to have those amenities, right? And what are those kids doing after school? So as you're developing and continuing to grow your economy, you make sure that you're growing each of those pieces so it continues to kind of spiral into the proper economic development that Williston needs to grow responsibly.
Thank you, Ms. Simoneski. Mr. White.
Well, Williston continues to grow with the Williston Square. We also need to make sure we hold account of frivolous spending and make sure we don't have and continue to watch expenditures of the city so taxes don't increase. Williston will continue to grow, I'm sure of that. It's a great place. We just have to make sure we have account of frivolous spending to make sure that we have the economic climate that we want to continue to have here in the small town of Williston. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. And a fourth and final question. What do you consider to be the top 3 priorities for the city of Williston at this time? Please answer in the form of a simple list. We'll begin with Mr. Johnson.
I would say workforce, housing, and that's a tough one because Williston has so much opportunity here. So there are a lot of priorities that we have to focus on, but also infrastructure. I would say infrastructure is number 3 for sure.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Simoneski.
I think housing, healthcare, and quality of life, including infrastructure.
Thank you, Ms. Simoneski. Commissioner Beckdahl.
Well, this is an important question because I had this discussion with the other city commissioners for the last 3 years that in my sense being that the top 3 priorities for the city of Williston and the things that would limit our growth if they were not properly addressed are good schools, good healthcare opportunity, and affordable housing.
Thank you, Commissioner Beckdahl. Mr. White.
First and foremost is number 1. Frivolous spending, housing, and communication with the citizens of Williston.
Thank you, Mr. White. You will now each have 1 minute for your closing statement. We will begin with Commissioner Beckdahl.
Well, thank you again. This is going to be filled with gratitude as Governor Burgum always comes out and states. So I want to first thank you and the Chamber for hosting this event. If you weren't doing it, it probably wouldn't be done. So I do appreciate that. I thank everybody that's here attending here and online for being here and taking the time to be informed. I want to thank my fellow candidates for offering to serve. It's no small task to make that decision. I want to thank my friends and family for their support all these years. And thank you for everybody that's voting in the June 11th election. While I sincerely appreciate your vote, I also believe any of these 4 candidates here tonight will serve Williston well as your next city commissioners. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Commissioner Bechdel. Mr. Johnson.
I'd also like to thank everybody for coming here tonight and the Williston Area Chamber of Commerce for putting this on. I'd like to say that I'm really excited to see whoever does get elected to take on the role, because I think they're going to do a great job. There's a lot of growth that comes with the role, and we're going to see that in whoever that individual is. So thank you, and make sure you go vote. Go take that responsibility of being a citizen and putting your voice out there. So go vote.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Mr. White.
Reiterating, of course, thank you everyone for listening and tuning in and for all the questions. Please go vote. Go vote. Also, congratulations to everyone that did get up on here and is willing to put themselves out. Some of you are familiar with me. I do wear many hats. One of my most common is my famous rainbow hat. I do also wear the drum bugle corps hat, and I do volunteer for TAPS for our fallen veterans. I've been here for my entire life, plan to stay here my entire life, honestly. I love it here. And I just encourage you to go out and vote June 11th. A vote for me is a vote for civility. Please and thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Ms. Simoneski.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and thank you for hosting this, Anna. As everyone said, definitely go and vote on June 11th. We need more people to get involved, whether it's voting or starting to do things like this, joining different groups, committees. It's very important to be involved in your community. And I just want to promise that if elected, I will listen, collaborate, and find innovative solutions to any challenges that are raised in Williston, and really advocate for sustainable growth in Williston. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Simoneski, and thank you to all candidates. You may now return to your seats. All right, our next group, we will bring up our school board candidates. And for those listening online, just a reminder that we did just hear from our city commission candidates. We had 4 candidates running for 2 open seats. We are now bringing up our school board. This election will happen on June 11th as well, but just a reminder that this is a separate ballot. So you will need to hit 2 separate ballot boxes on June 11th. And again, if you're looking for profiles for any of the candidates, those are online at willistonchamber.com. If you need additional information on voting, that is on the county's website. All right, looks like we are all settled up here for our Williston Basin School District number 7 school board candidates. Now, we have 2 sectors here. At large, where we have 5 candidates vying for 2 seats, including both incumbents who are running for re-election, and outside city limits, where we have 2 candidates vying for 1 seat vacated by Sarah Williams. Now, we will begin with the incumbent at large, Corey Swint. A dedicated family man, business owner, and community leader, Corey has built a successful plumbing business in Williston, where he lives with his wife and 4 children. His board and community involvement have demonstrated his commitment to civic duty and ability to collaborate with others. He says he wants to run again because he believes in the power of leadership to drive positive change and is committed to working tirelessly to build a better future for our community. Mr. Swint, you have 1 minute.
Thank you for hosting. I do appreciate everybody attending and listening on the radio. I believe in Williston. It's a great community. I love being a part of it. And having this opportunity to be here once again to represent our educators is extremely important to me.
Thank you, Mr. Swint. We'll now turn to the other incumbent, Heather Wheeler. This is again for at-large. Now, she came to Williston in 2010 from Michigan, and over the last 20 years has been heavily involved with schools, special education, and advocacy for those with disabilities, including 13 years as a parent, consultant, and advocate for Family Voices of North Dakota. She and her husband have 3 daughters, one with significant health and mental health needs, so the subject is near and dear to her heart. She says she is running again to ensure the safety of students, the appropriate use of funds, and to mend the hurt our community has experienced. Welcome, Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you. I appreciate everyone coming and listening, and all of the previous candidates for their various positions coming and speaking today. This is never an easy task, being put under a microscope and having to come up with things to say right away. I am very much interested in continuing to be on the board. There are a number of items on my checklist that I want to see checked off. I have a lot of passion and I have integrity, and I want to continue to serve the people of Williston, which is a community that I have lived in for a very long time and call my home. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Now, two of the challengers for the at-large seats, Autumn Marmon and Rayanne Rathbun, were not able to join us this evening, so we will now turn to Laura Tickle. Originally from Louisiana, Ms. Tickle moved to Williston in 2020 with her daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughter. She was an officer on her daughter's PTA, as well as a volunteer with disabled students in Louisiana, and remains an active volunteer in her granddaughter's school here in Williston. She says she is running to enhance communication, help students reach their highest potential, and ensure they have a support system. Welcome, Ms. Tickle.
Thank y'all for being here. It has been a pleasure to put my name out there to run for school board. I have not ever been in any type of political or anything like that, so it is a challenge for me. I am from Bossier City, Louisiana. I do have one granddaughter that is 10 that will be going to the Central Campus in the 5th grade this coming up new school year. I believe I have a lot to offer. I've been in and out and around schools my whole life when my daughter was growing up. Yes, being a part of the school system is a passion for me, and I look forward to serving on the board if I'm elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tickle. All right, and as I mentioned, we have two candidates running for outside of city limits. Now we will begin with Joseph Barsh. Originally from Tacoma, Washington, he came to Williston as part of the ongoing Gonzaga University internship program and fell in love with both Williston and his now wife. Now the Williston Parks and Recreation District Executive Director and new father, he's made Williston home. He says if one is in a position to help and chooses not to, that aligns more with problems rather than solutions. He says he's running because he would rather be on the side of solutions. Welcome, Mr. Barsh.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you to fellow candidates for your willing service. I'm passionate about community and passionate about service. I think strong communities are built through connectivity of especially the public sector, with strong schools, strong parks, a strong public safety. I'm running because I want to serve and I want to help in any capacity that I can, and because I believe in this community, and I hope to use any learning experiences that I have had thus far with my profession in Parks and Rec, which is also a public organization, to help in any capacity with the school district.
Thank you, Mr. Barsh. Our other outside city limits candidate is Melanie Peterson. Miss Peterson is a Williston native whose service in the National Guard took her around the world until her retirement brought her back to Williston, where she settled with her husband and 4 boys. A decorated veteran and dedicated community member, she looks forward to building strong school relations. Welcome, Miss Peterson.
Thank you all for inviting us to come down here and speak. I am from Williston, North Dakota, grew up and raised here between Alamo and the Williston area. Went to Round Prairie School, 1st through 8th, graduated Williston High School in 1995. Most of my career was in mentoring and training our young soldiers and adults to further their careers and their professional and personal life. I believe I have the experience in helping our youth and even some of our adults to help make the achievements that we need to make.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. We will now begin with questions. As a reminder, you each have 2 minutes to answer each question. The purple card means you have 30 seconds left, and the red card means you have 10 seconds to finish your answer. Question number 1. What inspired you to run for the Williston Basin School Board number 7, and what qualifications and experiences do you bring to the table? We'll begin with Ms. Tico.
Well, what has inspired me to run for the school board is, with living here for 3.5 years, I have seen to where a lot of lack of transparency, cooperation, and accountability. With being a part of the PTOs in the schools back home, I feel that my experience may not be so much as a qualification, because I feel that you really don't need to be qualified to be on any type of board. That experience will come when it's presented to you. Will I make mistakes? Absolutely. But you learn from the mistakes that you make. And I feel with my open-minded and willing to be a team player, I can bring a lot to the table, even though I don't have no board experience. I just think there's a lot that needs to be fixed in our broken education and our broken schools today.
Thank you, Ms. Tico. We'll move to Mr. Barsh.
Sorry. What inspired me to run? Personally, I was inspired to run through a call for service. I believe, as Anna mentioned in my bio, I recently had my first child, baby boy, 7.5 months old already. And in having a child and being rooted in this community through working with the Park District, I saw a need for help, and I want to help. I feel professionally uniquely prepared to address the challenges the school district is facing, from challenges that the Park District faced in our not too recent history. Challenges of funding, challenges of transparency, challenges of just operational oversight. These are challenges that I face with the community and with staff on a daily basis now, that involve bonding, an effort that built the ARC, that I work very closely with, have a strong understanding of municipal bonding, and then working with a team, working under a board for a public organization. And I feel prepared because of my professional experience working with the Park District to help. So that's why I felt inspired to run, is because, again, I feel that there is a problem, and it's important that if you can serve and you feel you can help address a problem, that is enough to make you do it.
Thank you, Mr. Barsh. Ms. Peterson.
Yes, education is the building blocks to pave the future for our children. Having a strong background, infrastructure support for them to be allowed to have to get quality education in a safe environment. That is our responsibility as adults, to make sure that they have everything they need to be successful, graduate, and go further on with their futures.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Mr. Swint.
Thank you. As a father of four, I felt uniquely qualified for the position. I came into this when I moved into this community and saw a need for board members that were supportive of our educators and that were a strong voice and willing to stand up for them. The educational environment is the foundation of any community. And as a business owner, seeing that we are lacking in areas of tradesmen and women, I felt that being involved in that was extremely important, encouraging the growth of CTE and continuing to serve the community in this fashion. I currently serve as a chair of the CTE Center and on the Renaissance Zone Board as well. And both of those bring great qualities. It's exciting for me to be involved in this because as a father of one child who's graduated and 3 who still attend school, I get to see their interactions with their educators and see different areas that many people may not experience on a daily basis. So I believe that that brings qualities that are extremely important to a board member and community member.
Thank you, Mr. Swint. And Ms. Wheeler.
So many years ago, when I first joined the board, ran for the board, I should say, I was encouraged to do so by a number of teachers and staff within the district that I had worked with in regards to some children with disabilities. I had advocated for those children. And I had seen that there was a need for a voice for the individuals who fall into the category of special health care needs, disabilities. They seemed to be falling between the cracks, this is many years ago, and did not have that voice. I have experience as a lobbyist in the past, in another life, and I have experience with a number of different boards, so I decided to run, and I won my seat. And each subsequent election, I've had a number of parents, a number of staff and community members asking me to run again. In my opinion, that tells me that people like what I represent, that they appreciate that I make sure I look at the minority. I represent the individuals who sometimes don't have a loud voice, the individuals who speak in a whisper, the individuals who need someone to hold them up. And as a result of that, I have a lot of passion for everyone, but my primary focus has always been on kids.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Now, school safety is a top concern for the district, families, and community members. What specific measures or policies do you support to maintain and enhance safety and security in our schools? And do you see parental involvement playing a role? Let's begin with Mr. Barsh.
So, what specific measures or policies? I believe specifically to maintain school safety, the education on what threatens school safety should be communicated throughout the schools, throughout the students, and focused on from an education standpoint. I believe that if we identify what threatens our school safety, an example, bullying threatening school safety, if we were to focus education on what creates the bully, what provokes the bully, and then how do we educate our youth to navigate differences, which is a challenge in a small community that is experiencing such drastic growth, is the amount of differences amongst the youth and all people. How do we educate them on how to properly navigate those differences in a way that minimizes conflict and maintains school safety? I also believe that our policies should be stemmed from national and regional statistics that drive school safety from a standard relation to standards. An example is how many students are in your schools, and based on that statistic, how many school resource officers should you have? How many students are they responsible for at a time? What is our professional development for these resource officers and our staff to maintain school safety? In regards to parental involvement, I think parental involvement is extremely important to every facet of the educational role. Parents are the most important factor of education. We have to work with parents, we have to involve parents, we have to communicate with parents, and take the communication from parents to adequately know how to keep their children safe in our schools.
Thank you, Mr. Barsh. Ms. Peterson.
I know some of the policies that they have in place, if there's, threats that they shut down the school for the kids' safety, supportive of that, that you don't want to let anything in or out to add in so that they can investigate. The resource officers are very effective at the schools, but they're limited. I think if we had some more support with them or for them, I think that would be very helpful. And the parental involvement, they hear everything from their kids. They know who's the bullies. If they see what's going on in the classrooms, listen to the kids, report the threats that it needs to be taken seriously. At least investigate into it. There's so many kids that have been lost due to the bullying that if someone would have just spoken up, could have been prevented. So parents, always listen to your kids. They raise those red flags for a reason. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Tico.
Thank you. Safety has always been a passion of mine. My goal, if I was elected to the board, would be to try to implement some key elements and to remembering safety in school should be first. And I think that's where a lot of people get disoriented with what does safety mean. Well, in order to be safe at school, because safe at school is education. If you can't be safe at school, you're not going to get educated. So my key elements would be implementing a more clear, defined rules and sorry, a little nervous here. Rules and responsibilities to be carried out by everybody, not just by the principals, not just by the vice principals, but we do, like many have said, we do need to have more RSO officers at every school, not just driving by, but at every school visible. Every student should know who their resource officer is. If there is bullying in school, if there is a fight in school, or if there is a threat, every student, including faculty, staff, and administration, should be able to walk up to the resource officer and say, look, this student is bullying me. Not be afraid to stand up and say, hey, I need help. And the way that that can be implemented is we need to build a stronger bond with the Williston Police Department as a whole, with the school board, the sheriff's department, and everybody, in order to bring more security into the school, which would help eliminate the bullying, the fights, and the threats. And I really do think that that is a good implementation for the schools to maintain security, and the parents do need to be involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tico. Ms. Wheeler.
I see parental involvement as being a huge piece to this puzzle. Right now, we have a lot of parents who are extremely involved in everything that's going on with their children in the school, and they are having those conversations with their children. They are having that back and forth and understanding what's going on. We also have a number of parents that are not doing that for one reason or another, and that is unknown to me. We have a number of different safety measures within our buildings. There are a number of different policies that we have within our buildings. We have 3 resource officers. Do we need more? Absolutely. But we, at the same time, have to be responsible with any of the monies that we're spending. Unfortunately, this is a topic that does go bound to money. We have spent large sums in updating our buildings for safety, adding cameras, adding badge scanners at our doors. They're not on all of them yet. We're still working on that. This is a work in progress. It's something that we're moving towards monthly. It's not anything that's sitting on the back burner. There is an old saying, you see something, you say something. We need to be doing more of that. We need to be encouraging our students to be doing that. If they're being bullied by someone, they do need to speak up. Some children do, but not all. We need to encourage staff that if you're seeing something, say something. Don't sit back and wait for someone else to take care of it. People need to learn to speak up. Many do, but several others are fearful of doing so, uncomfortable, or don't just know how to speak up and who to talk to. So we probably need to do a better job of letting buildings, administrators, and the public know who to call.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Mr. Swint.
School safety is of the utmost importance, not only for our students, but also our staff within the buildings. Policies that I specifically, our relationship with local law enforcement is key to the success of our student safety within the buildings. We have dedicated funds to that. I do believe that more funding needs to be budgeted to allow for the utilization of more highly trained SROs within our facilities. School resource officers have a unique ability to not only connect with our students in the classroom, but they create relationships with those students that go out into the community as well. And then those students become good law-abiding citizens with those interactions, and they learn from them. Continuing to improve the security of our facilities is a must. Ensuring that all school sites are adequately fenced, lighted, cameraed. We've worked hard on getting secure vestibules put in place at the building. Some are incomplete, but we're still working towards those as a district now. We have shown that safety is an important piece to what we want to accomplish. There are still a number of pieces that we have not been able to get done yet, but the funding is definitely always important. I do believe that the role a parent plays in creating that safety is communicating with their kids, and they're one of the most key roles that we have is talking to our children, talking to their friends, finding out what's going on, and being able to create trusting relationships that those students can communicate with the adults within the buildings and not feel at risk of retaliation. So moving forward, we definitely need to continue to create an environment where there's a trust between the adult and the student to show that they can communicate their concerns and fears and risks.
Thank you, Mr. Swint. All right, this is our third and final question for you. How would you approach budgetary decisions to ensure fiscal responsibility while still meeting the needs of students and staff? Let's begin with Ms. Wheeler.
I've always been a strong supporter of listening to the public. I've always put myself out there and have encouraged people to reach out to me, have encouraged people to speak with me. I take all of that information in and I utilize it in any decision that I make. Being someone who is elected by the people, it is my responsibility to listen to them. When it comes to anything dealing with the budget, that is something that I wholeheartedly listen to, and I make sure that it is part of any vote that I make. There have been times that I've had to vote one way when in my heart I wanted to vote another. However, I'd had an overwhelming number of people say this is what we need. And I have followed what the people have wanted. We've had some issues in the past with budget and fiscal issues. Those have been corrected and move forward. We have procedures and people in place to ensure that we are being fiscally responsible. There are 7 people on the board and there's 7 different personalities, and sometimes that can create a muddy situation when we're looking at the budget. But at the end of the day, we do finally get to where we need to be, and we all respect that and move forward.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Ms. Tickle.
Yes, thank you. With the budget and everything, I think everybody needs to be 100% transparency on this. Because yes, the board is under high transparency. They're put under a microscope with the thinnest scope that you can actually see nothing. And right now, there's no transparency, there's no accountability, and there's no corporation. So in order to bring the budget in, everybody needs to be cooperating together with transparency, 100%. And when we do that, then we're all human. We're all going to make mistakes, even me. But we have to be able to own that mistake, learn from that mistake, and have a reconciliation every month to know what our budget is. We got to have accounts receivable, accounts payable. We got to have a check and balance. If we don't have that, we're not going to be able to give the students and the staff what they need, whether it is on a financial budget or not. Going forward, we need to have accountability. We need to have cooperation. We need to have transparency. Having the budget is part of that. And we are all held responsible. We should all be held accountable. There should be strictly across the board 100% accountability for everything.
Thank you, Ms. Tico. Mr. Swint.
Obviously, anytime you're dealing with the public's money, it's a very difficult subject. As a board member who has served through a reorganization and now a passed bond, the community has to entrust you with their tax dollars, and it's the most difficult because you're keeping those tax dollars local. When I look at the budget, the goal needs to be whatever you're doing, whatever you're spending dollars on, it has to positively impact the student in the classroom. That what you're doing should be increasing their success rate. And if it's not, you have to make alterations to where you're putting money. It's not a never-ending pot of money. We are limited in resources. And ensuring that you are, through policies and direction to the superintendent, that you are giving good, solid foundation of where you want to see those dollars spent and where they go and how the success should be accomplished within the classroom. You have to make sure that you're communicating that. And you also have to ensure that the community input on where those dollars is going is heard as well. Ensuring that we have good relationships with audit companies and that we are continuing to move forward in the way that we have over the past few years to show the community that we are utilizing their dollars in the best way possible, and that's to positively impact our students.
Thank you, Mr. Swint. Ms. Peterson.
So I used to have to write a letter of justification why I needed such equipment, why I needed maintenance for this building, so I could do get a estimate of what it cost to do that and send it up through the channels for approval. Every one of the schools has a list of needs that to help meet the needs of the staff and the students. Each one of them is going to be a little bit different because one might need the fence and the other one might just need cameras. The budget's going to be different, but writing up the letter of justification to prioritize and get them sent down to each one of the schools, not one of them is left out.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Mr. Barsh.
As a school board member, I would approach every single decision through inclusion and transparency. I think every single decision has to be prioritized and communicated through inclusion and transparency. As a school board member, we have to understand that in these positions, these aren't our decisions to make. We are representatives. We speak for people. So you can't do that without inclusion of all the stakeholders. What does the public say, the professionals, the administrators, the students. That's what guides us. Specific to fiscal responsibility is understanding where you're at financially to the penny, and then also understanding how to communicate complex financials to the public. And that's, I believe that is a prerequisite to being in this position, being on a position that deals with such complex finances, such large numbers. You have to understand you can't just regurgitate what you read and expect everyone to understand what you're communicating. You have to understand how to decipher those numbers and communicate them in a way that it's understood, so that you can maintain transparency. You're making sure that your message is understood and heard. That's the most important way to communicate fiscal responsibility, is to understand how important how you communicate it reflects on how it's understood. When it comes to meeting the needs of students and staff, they're the key stakeholders. You have to work with what you have. Like Mr. Swent said, there is not enough money for everything. So where do you get the needs from? You get the needs from the students and the staff. You get the needs from the professionals that we are running to support. And then you identify the needs with the means that you have to operate the school district, and you work from there through inclusion and transparency.
Thank you, Mr. Barsh. You will now each have 1 minute for your closing statement. We'll begin with Mr. Swint.
Thank you again for hosting. This is exciting anytime we get to be in front of our community members. Throughout my time here in Williston since 2014, I have seen a community that is extremely vibrant and growing. There have been great changes, and most recently, we have got to see the community rally around education. And in that, I would like to continue to serve our community and move us forward. I don't feel that I'm done yet. I believe in what we've started, and I would like to see it through and accomplished. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Swint. Ms. Wheeler.
I also want to continue to serve the people of this community. I have seen it grow tremendously over the years. I have seen more wonderful teachers and families move into our area that have contributed to our environment to make Williston an absolutely wonderful city to live in. I have my passion still for education. I have my passion for the families, for the staff, and for the students. And I want to make sure that their needs are being met and that they're always coming first. Thank you. And don't forget to vote on June 11th.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. Ms. Tickle.
Again, I would like to thank all of y'all for coming out on this late afternoon, this late evening. When y'all go to the polls to vote on June the 11th, and you see my name on the ballot to be voted, let's think about the students, the faculty, the staff, the administrators. What are they asking for? What are they needing? What is the community wanting? What is the public wanting? What are they needing? They're asking questions. They're needing transparency. They're needing more fostering, more accountability. I think I can bring that to the table if you would give me the opportunity to serve on the board for District 7. Thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Ms. Tickle. Mr. Barsh.
Thank you. I would like to extend a sincere thanks to my fellow candidates here for joining me at this table tonight, and as well as for the involved community members here present and listening. I believe in connectivity. I believe you can't have a strong park system without a strong school system, and you can't have either of those without strong city departments. They all work together. How can we work together more closely to use the resources that we have available to us to serve and build a strong community? I think we identify the problems, and then we collaborate to address them with our shared resources because they are public's resources, and that's the best way to be mindful of them. I believe I am uniquely prepared to serve in this capacity, and I believe in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Barsh. And Ms. Peterson.
Thank you all for coming. I was a civil servant for 21 years serving my state and my country, and I want to serve it on the school board, helping to mentor and mold the children of our future. They it's very near and dear. I have 4 sons I've raised. 3 of them graduated from Trenton School. 1 of them graduated from Van Cleve. All of them had, you know, a little bit of their own issues, but working together. And we have to remember, it takes a village to raise these kids. They need all of us in one aspect or another to make sure that they're successful and graduate and have the tools to succeed. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson, and thank you to all candidates. Before we conclude, I wanted to see if our park board candidate was able to join us this evening. Yes. All right. Would you like to come up and just give an introduction before we conclude? No? No. I'll give you a mic for those online. Yep. John Livfrig, everybody.
Hi, everybody. We had a meeting at 5:30, so Joe and I came down here right after we were done with that. But I'm running again for another 4-year term on the park board. We got a lot of accomplished here the last 4 years. We've got a good staff. We got the staff numbers under control. We got our budget under control. We've made a lot of changes up there. We have a lot of projects left to do. We've got Harmon Park to address. We've got the golf course to address. We've got parking lots at Western Star, at the golf course, at the walking tracks, the cart paths at the golf course. So we've got all kinds of needs and issues to address yet. So we're hoping to tackle some of those. We are going to have our sales tax renewal coming up next year probably, which is really critical for us to address a lot of these issues. It's a real good funding source for us, and it gives us the needed funds we need to accomplish and complete some of these projects. So I'm 60, just about 69 years old. I was certainly hoping that some younger buck would step into this and get involved, but that didn't happen, so here I am again. Any questions? I'll try to answer them.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for running down here after your meeting. We appreciate it. All right. So that does conclude our Williston Area Chamber of Commerce 2024 Candidate Forum. Thank you all so much to the candidates for their participation this evening. Thank you to everyone who attended both live and virtually, and thank you to everyone that submitted questions. Thank you to 660 Keys for broadcasting this event so that we can reach as many voters as possible with this important information. And thank you, Western Region Economic Development, for partnering with us in order to make that happen. And last, of course, be sure to get out and vote on June 11th. You can find more information at vote.nd.gov and at williamsnd.com/elections. If you need to vote via absentee ballot, those applications are open, and Williams County has the information available. I think there are some one sheets there in the back with some additional information. So with that, thank you again. Please get out to vote June 11th and have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you.